Hello and welcome to Changemakers. In this show, we have interesting conversations with people who are making a change, making a difference, making an impact. Our guest today is Alissa Finerman, life coach, motivational speaker, and author of a soon-to-be best-selling book, How to Living in Your Top 1%. Alissa, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So what does living in your top 1% mean?
I think the idea really came about is society talks so much about reaching the top 1%, having it be a competition. And I think the idea of living in your top 1% is that everyone who watches our video today can actually live his or her best life. So it becomes a mindset, a way of life, and a choice to deliver our best self, to live a life that you're passionate about, you're fulfilled, and truly when you wake up every day, you're excited. And you feel like you have a purpose. Absolutely.
I mean, that's a beautiful sentiment, to draw out the best in everyone and allowing each person to be the best Alissa they can be, the best Gopi they can be. So why do you think people don't get there? What prevents them from living in the top 1%?
Well, I think in the book we talk about, we have 9 rituals, and I think one of the important points is mindset. And obviously Henry Ford has a great quote, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And so these beliefs, or the story that we tell ourselves, ultimately our words and our thoughts move into our mindset and ultimately our actions and our results. And what we think is possible or impossible really becomes a reality. And I think the important part is that these are things that most of us know, right? And the question becomes not what we know, but what we practice. And that's really, I think, where we start to see the difference of people who move into their top 1%. Mm-hmm. The difference, obviously, you know, there are lots of people who talk about starting a not-for-profit, who talk about starting their own business, but the true top 1%ers who are sharing their greatest gifts with the world are the ones who take their ideas and put them into action. And it's not easy, but I think when you are clear on your values, and really what guides you on a daily basis, clarity does come.
And what leads to the clarity? How does one find that clarity?
Well, people are obviously on a journey, and I think we go through all our experiences and we try to learn from our experiences along the way. But I do think it starts with values and what grounds us. And whether some people, their values are family, values might be respect, values might be intellectual stimulation or challenge or physical challenge or adventure, travel. There's so many different things, gratitude, kindness, abundance. Yeah. And I think once you're clear on that, and I think once you're clear on your strengths, identify them and realize what are you good at, and are you actually doing that on a daily basis? I think this is the whole process of clarity.
Yeah. So I absolutely agree with all of this, but I'm puzzled by something, Alissa, here. In a world, I walk into a bookstore today, and there are tens of thousands of what seem to be all new books on the bookshelf. And many of the ideas you talk about, whether it's gratitude or authenticity or taking care of the most important things in your life, all these are values that people have talked about for ages. But something drove you to say that it needs to be expressed in a new voice, in a new book. So what was your motivation for writing this book?
Right, and I think it's important to note that there are so many incredible books out there, and everyone watching this, you never know when you're going to hear one word, you're going to hear one quote that's going to change your life. And 10 people might actually say the same sentence a little bit differently, and it's going to resonate differently with different people. Yeah. So while we have incredible books out there on strengths, on mindset, on goals, on communication, I think what drove me to write the book was, one, I wanted to help people redefine success in their life, and I wanted them to think about this. Yeah. I wanted them to think about the idea of what does it mean to live your best life, and what are top 1% moments for you, and what are top 1% moments for people who have achieved a lot. What are the things that truly fulfill you at the end of the day? Typically, it's not the bonus, and that's what I see time and time again with all of my clients that I work with. So I felt that the idea of living your best life, I feel like, is a little bit overwhelming, and often we don't really know what would be the next step to do that. And so this book, in addition to redefining success, helping people do that, I wanted people to understand that from any starting place, whatever's gone on in your life, there are great moments ahead of you. and you can move forward. And so this book is a little bit of one-stop shopping
Okay.
that really tries to break it down in a very, I'm going to use the word simple, but empowering format that helps people say, okay, here's where I am. I'm going to assess what's going on, create some goals, and then implement the ideas in my life that are truly important and meaningful.
Okay. So you talk of goal setting in this book early on. So I'm going to ask you, what is the goal you have set for yourself in the writing of this book, in talking about this book?
Well, one of the goals that I have for the book is I'd love to see the day where every student has the opportunity to have this book and where I could go and talk to all of them, because not everyone has someone that believes in them. I remember when I sent out my newsletter saying that I wrote my book, I got an email back saying, I believe in you, love, Dad. And every kid and every person deserves someone. So whether the book does that, whether I go talk to them, they deserve someone to tell them, you can have dreams. You can go after, you can do that. And so that's one of my true goals for the book, and in writing the book, just to really simplify the process.
Absolutely. So I'm also going to go back a little bit about how you got here. No, I know from your background that you went to Cal Berkeley, you played tennis there, you were on the professional tennis circuit, you went to Wharton, you worked on Wall Street, and that is not the usual career path that leads you to writing a book and becoming a life coach. But there must be something that you drew from all those experiences.
Right. Those are a bunch of great questions in there. Maybe we'll take a couple of them separately.
Sure.
And so when my time, we can talk a little bit about each of the different experiences, what I took away from that. But in terms of, I remember the day on Wall Street. And
but let's start with the most important one, which is there was some turning point that took place. You said, this is not me, but finding the voice in a book like this is really what my life is all about at this point in time.
Right. And that was really during my time on Wall Street.
Okay.
I felt that I was getting further and further away from how I really define success.
Yeah.
And success for many people when they start is about maybe how much money you make, or your title, or your status, or what type of car you drive, or how many houses you have, where you live.
Yeah.
And I think once you have your basic survival needs met, you might continue to redefine what success means to you. And at this point, while I was working on Wall Street, success to me meant a little bit more about making a difference in the world, helping others, inspiring others, motivating others, being fulfilled and engaged by what I did. And so I didn't feel that was the case. And that's when I realized, about the same time, I got a postcard in the mail from NYU talking about their coaching program. And it really interested me, and I went to some sessions, and I realized that this is very interesting and something that I would like to pursue. And that was a little bit of the turning point. And of course, it's difficult to walk away when I have gone to Wharton Business School. Many people in my family had gone to were in finance. And at some point, you have to really think about what your path is, and can you wake up another day and stay on this path? And after a while, I couldn't do that. I felt that I wanted to make a different contribution to the world. And if trading 50 million bonds wasn't exciting, then I think it was pretty clear I needed to do something else.
And you found your calling here, it looks like, clearly, with the passion with which you're pursuing
Yeah, I think I'm on the right path right now. And I think, just going back to your point, I think a lot of people think that they are going from point A and they're just trying to get to point B. And I think what you were talking about before is that process, and what we take from the different, or not what we take, but what we learn from the different experiences. And those experiences are invaluable.
Yeah.
My time on the tennis tour, my time on the tennis courts, my time in Wall Street.
Yeah.
And from tennis, I think I learned the importance of mastery of the mind, which obviously I continue to work towards, but realize the importance and the power of words that we use, and really how we can control our mind and condition our mind, more importantly, to just completely remove certain words in terms of can't, impossible, should, and fill our minds with what we want to do. I was reading some article where a woman was talking to her young kid, and she was saying that every day is a good day. And she was trying to teach her kid to do that, and her kid started to do that. And it's these shifts are very quick.
Yeah. So what did tennis teach you? So you mentioned about what language you bring in, but if you were to take away, let's say, 3 lessons from the tennis court, that you now share with your readers or with your clients?
Well, one of them is mastery of the mind. That's just so key when you're 5-all third set. If you're telling yourself you can or you can't. I just played in the finals of the women's 40s nationals, indoor nationals, and we were down love 3 in the second set. We'd won the first set, down love 3. I serve and I double fault 3 times. I mean, for anyone who plays tennis, double faulting 3 times is unheard of, and it's probably my worst game ever.
Yeah.
But at that point, you have to decide which path are you going to go down. You're at a crossroads. You have to decide pretty quickly, are you going to just let your game go down the drain, or are you going to just forget it and move forward? And so that's something that you learn. You learn when you make a presentation. If your presentation doesn't go well, it doesn't mean you're a horrible presenter, or do you just have a bad day and can you get back in the game? So I think the idea of mastery of the mind, getting back in the game, whether you win or lose, and then I think the idea of consistency.
Yeah.
And I think many people, they look at the results and they say, ooh, I want that result. Oprah, I want to interview people and have my own talk show. I mean, there's someone that works more than 12-hour days to get that show perfect with a huge staff. And so I think the idea of consistency, I've pretty much played tennis almost every day since I was 9 or consistently, and you get different results. And so I think the idea of how does consistency play in our lives, are you investing time and energy consistent with the results that you want, has been a very important theme for me and one that comes up with clients a lot.
Yeah, well said. And I know you are now number 1 in the USTA 40s bracket. Is that correct? Nationwide? That's fantastic accomplishment. But people see it and don't quite realize how many years preparing to get to that point in your life.
Right, and I think it really depends what is important to you. How do we all want to spend our time? Mary Oliver has a great poem and a line in there. You can help me if I screw it up. But what are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? And it's not a question that you need
the only life that she says that you'll ever get.
Right, and so it's not a question that we have to wait 30 years. It's something that we can think about right now.
Yes.
And you don't have to wait until you're 50 or 60 to go and do what you love. Every single day can be filled with things that are meaningful to you, whether it's part of your career. I mean, I love all the things that you're doing. You have a pretty big job, and you're doing all these things on the side and leading this really full life in terms of speaking and doing the show. And the point is that you just did it. You started the show, and you've been speaking. You've done a TED Talk, and these are really big things because you set out and you did it, and you decided how you want to spend your time. And so, for people who say I don't have time, or there's always an obstacle in the way of everything. Everything.
So I want to go back to something that you said. You found your dream, something that fulfills you, and you're pursuing it with a passion. Now, all of that sounds great. For most people, getting to that point is a big struggle. So I was at the birthday party of one of our classmates from business school, and I met a guest there who said, I'm struggling with trying to figure out at this point, what is my purpose in life? What should I dedicate my life to? And most people struggle with just getting to the answer to that question. So what advice do you have for people to find that?
Well, I think the first thing is to realize that it's fantastic to even be on that journey and to be aware enough that that is where you are going. So that, I think, is super exciting. I think the other idea is to remember that it's not a simple point A to B. It's not that once you get there, everything's going to be great. And sometimes you have to be exactly where you are to realize and appreciate the experiences that you have. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about, thinking about your day, thinking about what are the best parts of your day, what are the things that you love about with your job. And whether it's, I think a lot of people think in terms of all or nothing. It doesn't need to be all or nothing. You don't need to be interviewing all day long to do this. Maybe eventually you will, but it's okay if people start small. And I think that's a powerful concept. I think it's also unrealistic to think that you're going to find your quote-unquote passion if you spend no time thinking about it. Right? You got to be diving in. You got to do the work. And so the question is, what are your top 1% influences? What are you reading? I mean, people who succeed and achieve, they read a lot. And so what are you reading? Are you reading blogs? By who? Are you looking at things from Harvard Business Review? What type of books? Are you reading biographies, which are all great,
Yeah.
but where are you getting your inspiration from? Are you in a mastermind group?
Yeah.
And these are important questions. Do you spend once a week just writing for 20 or 30 minutes and seeing what comes up? Are you looking at your day and seeing what's important?
Yeah.
And it takes, I think, moving outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It takes moving outside your comfort zone. I mean, I moved from New York to California when I was 40. That's a pretty big move.
Yeah.
And I think those are the times when we do learn the most. I think it's important for people to realize that the trajectory is not a straight line.
Zigs and zags.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
not. And it goes back and forth, and the universe is going to test you over and over again to see if you can get back up one more time.
Yeah.
And, I think, I'm working with a client right now who is very successful in finance. They moved away from that and moved into the film industry, and they love what they're doing, but they're still trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I make the money that I want to make? And so nothing's ever quite perfect. And you might like what you do more. You may not make as much money as you might like. Maybe you're making more money, but you don't love your day. Maybe you don't like your boss. And so sometimes I think it's a little bit of our perspective, how we are grateful for where we work and what we have. And are you just always looking for something outside of your work, or are you okay right where you are? And how do you make your work environment better? And I think one of the ideas is, how do you really take control and be the CEO of You Inc. and make decisions? One client, I think sometimes we franchise out different parts of our life, maybe healthy living. And so one of my clients was living with her boyfriend, and turns out that healthy living, her boyfriend was sort of running that area, but she really wasn't getting the results that she wanted. And so once we understood that, she took control of that back. And I think that's an important concept. You need to take control. Life is a series of choices.
So I want to touch upon another aspect, another part of your life from where you seem to have drawn lessons, even though that might seem like an unusual place. So I can understand going from tennis, being a tennis champion, to wanting to talk about motivations, and it seems a natural fit. But you're also on Wall Street, where the environment can be pretty tough and demanding and highly competitive. But you took away lessons from that, and one of the things you mentioned in the book is that no matter what the situation, you can learn something from it. So what did you learn from being a bond trader on Wall Street that you're now teaching to your clients or talking about in this book?
Right. Well, Wall Street is incredible. I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to just understand the markets and how that works, and I think that's a rare opportunity. But I think what I learned there is, when on the corporate bond desk, you have just a ton of information every morning that's being thrown at you from all of your traders who trade different sectors of the market. And what your responsibility are, you're really a conduit, right, from your desk to your clients. And you might cover 10 different clients, and each client has something different that they need to hear. One client might be a hedge fund, one's a real money account, one's in an insurance company. And so you need to be able to take all of this information and understand what are the 4 or 5 key elements that your client needs to hear. And that's challenging.
Yeah.
That's very challenging. So I think that idea of being able to have a perspective, being able to see the bigger picture, but understand how the details fit within the context of a situation, is pretty much what I do today. And I've got a series, Top 1%er interview series on my site. And when I interview different leaders or entrepreneurs or students, and it's important to realize that anyone can be in that series. It's not about being the CEO. But what's talked about is passion. What's talking about is being able to see the bigger picture. What's talked about is mindset. There are things that are available to everyone. And so the idea of being able to see the bigger picture, that is a very difficult trait. I think sometimes we get sidetracked by one detail without putting it in perspective, and or taking that detail and say, well, what's the context of this, right? What does this really mean?
So all of this talk, in some way, I feel, and it's fantastic to hear, and you're truly a very well-accomplished woman. But my fear is that somebody viewing the show or reading the book will say, Alissa, all that is fine for you. But you went to Cal, you're a professional tennis player, you went to Wharton, you worked on Wall Street. What about me? I barely graduated from college. I'm unemployed now. My circumstances did not permit me to get all of the things that you went to. How does such a person access this material? Is it really for them?
Well, I think it's a great question, and I think it's critical to understand that I did all of those things. And I actually said, thank you very much. Yes, I went to business school. Yes, I went to Cal Berkeley. Yes, I did all these things and I worked on Wall Street. But what I realized is those are not quite the things that were deeply fulfilling to me. I mean, those are a fantastic experience, don't get me wrong, and clearly help you, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, being fulfilled, being engaged, being satisfied, being happy, you don't need to go to business school for that.
Okay.
And you know, there are people who are going to find excuses with everything. They're going to find why something can't be done. They're very familiar with the word impossible. But what we need to do, and anyone can do this, is study the what ifs, the why nots. People who make things happen. That's available to everyone. So quite frankly, my background has nothing to do with anything, because what we're talking about is this end of the spectrum, which is about the most fulfilling experiences, the top 1% moments of spending time with your family, of taking that vacation that you always wanted to take, of being close with your nieces, of learning French, of turning your photography hobby, which just happened with someone on my Facebook page, and he just started his own photography business. I mean, that's a complete top 1% moment, right? Isn't that incredible?
Absolutely. So are you willing to talk about some situation where you have helped somebody do like a massive turnaround? And just walk me through a situation or a story. I'm curious.
Well, I mean, there are things every day, but one of my clients was working on Wall Street, and it wasn't the role that she wanted to stay in. She wanted to move more into management, but she didn't have a lot of management experience. She wanted to feel more respected and fulfilled in her work. And a headhunter approached her and said, "I'm representing a client who is looking for someone to run the desk, the sales desk at another major firm."
We want to explain what a desk is. No,
to run one of the sales desks in fixed income. There are different products in terms of mortgages, high yield, emerging markets, governments, corporates, but it's fine just to run an area. I think that's the point. And she said, no thanks, because it turns out she's a single mom, and she's the sole wage earner for her family and supports other people in her family. And so the important part here to realize is that if this is a 25-year-old kid, comes from a wealthy family, has something to fall back on, maybe it's not that big a deal that he moves outside his comfort zone. But for someone who, in her situation, seeing it through her eyes, that takes a lot of courage to step through your fear, to really step outside your comfort zone. So we talked through it. We identified the obstacles. We identified what she ultimately wanted, that her vision was to really move into management and to work in an environment where she could help strategize for the future of the firm. And within 6 weeks, she basically took one step. She told the headhunter yes. She talked to about 10 or 15 people at the firm, as you know you have to go through. And she got an offer, and she's now the only woman on Wall Street to run a sales desk as a single mom.
Wow.
And that took 6 weeks. So it's just an unbelievable story. It's an unbelievable story when someone steps out of their comfort zone. And the point is, stepping outside your comfort zone is available to everyone that's going to watch this. They don't teach you that in business school.
Absolutely.
You learn it in life. And you learn it by doing it. And I think that's very much the point of the book, to let people from every single area and walk of life know that they can do it. That you can redefine what success means to you.
So it's very inspiring to hear you say all this. I'm totally motivated to go out and do something and accomplish this. I mean, your energy is fantastic. But I'm sitting here curious to say, do you have vulnerabilities like normal people? Are there some days when you don't feel so inspired, when you feel like beaten back, when you feel not ready to get out of bed and do something? And if do you have those days like other people watching the show do, and how do you deal with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we all have those ideas. I mean, what I always try to work on is, and I mean, of course I have things I'm working on. I work a lot on being patient, and I work a lot on being present. Being present to just enjoy where you are, what's going on, to be grateful for each thing. And I do tend to be a little impatient, and that's something that clearly I think I could improve upon. And recently I had jury duty, and I was all concerned because you're trying to figure out, God forbid you get on a case for a really long time, what's going to happen, and you start stressing about it for no reason. And I had an interview that I wanted to make, and the funny thing is, in the 11th hour, I was picked, and they start talking to all the jurors, and then in the 11th hour, literally, I couldn't even believe it. They go, juror number 3, dismissed. And so,
talk about manifesting what you want.
The moral of that story is I wasted all this energy and was stressing about that instead of just enjoying the experience. Whatever happened, happened. And for no reason, I wasted this energy about that. So the point is, we always need to try to recondition our mind, and we all fall into habits that we don't want to do. And I think it goes back to where we started the conversation. It's not about what we know, it's about what we practice. And I think the idea of when something doesn't go as planned, you can laugh about it, you can say this is the worst day ever, or you can deal with it. And that pretty much is a choice every day. And I really, I work really hard to condition my mindset. And I'm not always in a great mood, but clearly it's nice talking to you. And so I'm always working on things. But one of the things that I do is really try to take quiet time to re-energize. And I think that's an important point that people can make. I think as you get to know yourself better, I live in LA, and I hike a lot in the Santa Monica Mountains. And that for me is an incredible experience. And when I was writing the book, there were times where I needed some inspiration. I needed some new thoughts, some new brain power. And I think the idea of quieting our minds, some people do yoga, some people meditate, some people spend time with friends. And for me, I really like to hike. So I think when I quiet my mind, I'm able to be in a much better place.
That's fantastic. That's a great note to finish the show. We are almost out of time here. Alissa, it's been a pleasure talking to you. That's some really, really inspirational talk, and I look forward to reading the book. So our guest today has been Alissa Finerman, author of a soon-to-be best-selling book, Living in Your Top 1%, which I have no doubt will be among the top 1% of books for this year. Alissa, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. It was really fun.